Good evening, students. Welcome to our live classes on this paper number 3B, that is GST law. You can call it as GST in indirect tax also, but mainly it is GST at your inter level. At final level, you have other indirect taxes also, but at this level, it is mainly GST. So it is GST, right? Now, in the previous class, we started with the topic of time of supply. And I'm sure you all remember this topic. You all have understood this topic. So basically, time of supply, it talks about the date on which you are required to pay tax. And in that, we have studied all aspects given in section 12, which deals with time of supply of goods. Along with this, we also read section 31, which deals with the time limit to issue invoice in different scenarios. Correct? And we tried to discuss all these aspects vis-a-vis the practicals. So I've given you real life case study examples as you can expect in exams. Now, before I proceed to section 13, which is the time of supply for services, in case if you have any queries, doubts, I'll first take up your queries and doubts, and then I will go to time of supply for services. So students, yes, very good evening, Dhanlakshmi, Surinder, Karan, Diksha, Tanu, Maithili, Lavanya, everybody, Veerashri, Rajkumar, very good evening. So students, let me know your questions, your doubts, so that I address them first before I take up the next part in this chapter. Over to you, student. Yes, good evening, Sridhar, Kashish, Mehak, Prajot. Kindly share our Telegram link on the group. Some students are asking. Technical team. Students, no questions. These are some practical case studies, examples that we understood in the previous class relating to different aspects of time of supply for goods. Yes, Aditi.
Sir,
Yes,
good evening, sir. Sir,
very good.
in this continuous supply, I didn't get about periodical payment. Like in the previous year class, I didn't attended it. I watched the recorded one on the YouTube, but when I watched it, so I got very confused about this periodical payment. Like payment is something different, and periodical payment is something different. So please, could you explain
Yes,
that?
yes, yes. I'll tell you, beta. See, when we say payment, it means your payment as per the due date or as per the regular time limit fixed for making payment. Like generally it is fixed immediately after the supply is over. You have to make payment in 15 days, 20 days, 1 month. That is what is your regular
Yes, sir.
payment. Now what is periodic payment?
Yes, sir.
See, in continuous supply, what happens? The supplier is continuously sending you the goods. He is continuously delivering, dispatching the goods, right? This is what
Okay.
is continuous supply. Now, when the supplier is continuously delivering the goods and he says, "Ki we will do the hisab after 2 months," that is up to 2 months, I will keep on supplying the goods and we will find out what is the outstanding after 2 months. But then he will say, "Ki, Are, yaar, since I am regularly supplying me goods, why not you also keep on every week paying me 1,000 rupees? And we will do at the time of hisab, we'll find out what is the difference, net payable or receivable." So when such type of payment is discussed and agreed, which will happen only in case of continuous supply, where you will
Yes.
be every week, every 15 days, whatever periodicity is decided, that periodicity wise, when you make payment, it will be called as periodical payments. So periodical is you decide a fixed amount, and after every period over, you keep on making that payment, and then after a gap of time, you will do the hisab to find out whether excess is paid or whether difference has to be paid. That is what is periodical payment.
Sir, sorry, the recipient has to maintain a periodical statement.
Statement of,
This continuous supply.
no, see, understand this. When the supplier is supplying, now see the simplest example today, what you are experiencing of continuous supply of goods is electricity. So what is
Yes.
happening every day, even right now, you are using the electricity and there is a meter put in your building pertaining to your connection where the meter is continuously recording how much electricity you are drawing. Correct? So
Yes,
that is
sir.
how there is a record being maintained of the supply. So whenever any such continuous supply happens, and many times it will happen through some wires, through some pipe, like electricity is supplied through wires, gas is supplied through pipeline. So that is what will be the medium of supplying the goods on continuous basis.
Okay, so we have to see the date of invoice and date of periodical statement and periodical payment. The earlier one we have to see.
Perfect, beta.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, beta. Yes, students. So let me now go to the next part, which is time of supply of service. Again, first we deal with forward charge. So now, in case of forward charge transaction, again the services can be divided into three categories. One is regular, then continuous, and then there is cessation. So continuous supply of service. Now, similar to goods, here also in forward charge, you have three categories. Now, what is continuous supply of service? Again, if I have to give you the most simplest example, you are enjoying regular internet services. Even at this point of time, you are consuming internet. Now, internet, telecom, all these are services. Now, when you are on a continuous basis using a service, that is what is called as continuous supply of service. Again, the account of this, the hisab of this will be done after a periodic interval, which may be a month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever may be decided. Another example of continuous supply of service is coaching. Again, that also right now you are experiencing it. So this coaching class is for, let us say, 3.5 months. Now for 3.5 months continuously on daily basis, we are providing you some or the other teaching service, whereby different faculties at their respective time slots are teaching you different papers, different chapters in the papers. So on a continuous basis, we are providing you some supply. This is what is continuous supply of service. And then there is a special case called as cessation. Say, to cease means to stop. Now this cessation will come into picture where originally you had contracted to supply a particular service, but that service in between had to be stopped. So example is, you had appointed me as your auditor for the whole year. I started doing audit after 3 months. Because of some internal dispute, I decide to stop these services in between. So this will be called as cessation of service. Correct? Now, What will be time of supply for this? For this, there are three types of service: regular, continuous supply, cessation. Now, in case of regular service, you have to check what? Whether invoice was issued within 30 or 45 days. Now, what is this? Now, this provision was not there in case of goods. In case of goods, you had to issue invoice immediately. However, Section 31, which deals with issuing of invoice, has made a special provision for supply of service. What does this section says? This section says that in case of regular services, which is not continuous or it is not the case of cessation, they have given us 30 days time limit to issue invoice. So after the service is provided, after that, within 30 days or up to 30 days, I can issue invoice. But if I'm an insurance company, if I'm a banking company, the time limit given to me for raising invoices 45 days. So that is why you have two time limits given. Now what you have to check? Whether this invoice was issued within the time limit of 30 days or 45 days. Two possibilities. Yes, it was issued, or no, it was issued later. If it is issued yes, then TOS is earliest of. Now here it is earliest of date of invoice. Now since the invoice is issued within time limit, the invoice is a valid invoice. So date of invoice or date of receipt of payment. However, where invoice is not issued within time limit, it is earliest of date of providing the service or the date of receipt of payment. So two possibilities, two answers. So firstly, understand this, students. So I'll give you a simple example. Mr. Anand booked a hall for marriage of his daughter on 15th May 2026. The invoice was raised on 12th June 2026 and payment made on 25th June 26. Now in this same question, what will be your answer if invoice was raised on 20th June 26? Now see, what is the marriage date? 15th. So the service of hall accommodation was provided on 15th, which is the date of marriage. After this service was over, the invoice was raised on 12th June. Now what you have to check? You have to check whether the invoice was issued within 30 days. If the answer is yes, time of supply is earliest of these 2 days. If answer is no, time of supply is these dates. So possibility A, possibility B. Now I'm writing down few things. Date of provision of service, which is 15th May. Date of invoice. In original case, it is 12th June. In the revised case, it is 20th June. And date of payment 20th June. Sorry, it is 25th. 25th June. Now, it is not a continuous supply of service, it is a one-time service. So it is not continuous, there is no cessation. So we apply the rule applicable to regular service, common service. So first we have to check whether this invoice was issued within 30 days of provision of service. In this case, answer is yes. So this date is not relevant to me. I will check time of supply between these two dates, whichever is earlier. So my answer in this particular case, the time of supply, whichever is earlier, is this. Now in second case, where invoice is issued after 30 days, now I will not see invoice. Now I have to check between these two dates, that is the date of provision of service and date of receiving payment. Out of this, whichever is earlier is my time of supply. So in the revised case, where the invoice was issued after 30 days, this is the time of supply. Just allow me a minute, students. Yes. So student, is there a query with this particular first scenario? Yes, Aditi beta.
So why in the first case we didn't pick 15th of May?
Because what does the rule says? If your invoice is issued within time limit, So what is the time limit? 30 days from the date of provision of service. So what
Okay.
are the only two dates that you have to check? It is date of invoice, because now see, once the invoice is issued within time limit, it becomes a valid invoice. And
Yeah.
if it is valid invoice, we will only see the invoice and the payment. Then we
Oh,
need not see the date of provision. But where the invoice is issued late, then it is not a valid invoice. So as good as it is not there for us in the eyes of law, there is no invoice. Then the two dates which are relevant are the date of providing the service and the date of payment.
okay, so got it.
Correct? Dhanalakshmi beta, when 45 days is to be taken? What is the rule given? What did I mention for 45 days? You are asking me why 45 days is not taken, but for that you have to recall what did I say about 45 days? When 45 days is to be seen? Yes, Dhanalakshmi. But where continuous service is there? I am not yet started continuous service. When I was writing this and I explained this, what did I say about 45 days? Yes, students, when you have to see 45 days?
For banking companies.
Yes,
Insurance companies.
when it is banking or insurance or NBFC. Is this the case of banking, insurance, NBFC? Answer is no. Fine. That is why Dhanalakshmi, we did not see or we did not count 45 days. Fine. Now let me take another example. Now see, the moment this date of payment is to be checked, a very important example is of advance. So now I'll take example where advance is involved. A similar transaction was taken by me in the previous class also. So another example. Miss Anita is interior consultant, Messrs. PQR Limited, approaches her for designing their new office. She quotes rupees 5 lakhs with 50% in advance. Advance is paid on 9th February 26. Service provided on 15th March. Invoice issued on 25th March. Balance 50% received on 10 June. I'll just change one date. So let it be 25th of May. Fine. Now, if you remember our previous example where advance is involved, you have to do the working in two parts. So 50% advance and balance 50%. So the payment I'm splitting in two parts. Correct? Now I'll write down the dates. Date of service, date of invoice, date of payment. Now, what is the date of providing the service? It is 15th March. What is the date of invoice? 25th May. And what is the date of payment? 9 Feb. And the second balance is on 10th June. Now, students, whenever date of payment is applicable, like it is applicable in case of RCM transaction of goods, and it is applicable in all transaction of services. In such cases, you will have to be very cautious whenever advance is given. Whenever advance is given, you have to split your transaction into two parts. That is first for the advance and then for the balance. Now, what is the date of service? The service was provided on 15 March. Invoice was issued on 25th March. Is the invoice issued within 30 days? Answer is no. Since the invoice is not issued within 30 days, we will not see this date. So this date is not relevant for us. Now, what are the two dates that we have to see? Date of provision of service, date of payment, whichever is earlier. Now, for the first 50%, whichever is earlier is 9th Feb. And for the balance 50%, whichever is earlier is 15th March. So our answer will be TOS for advance rupees 2.5 lakh and TOS for balance. It is rupees. So students, whenever there will be advance, you will have to make calculation in two parts. That is for both the payments, the advance and the final. Yes, is this clear to all? Anybody having any query, question on this? Yes, students. Okay. Okay. All done? Great. So let us go to the module and see. So see 13.1 is same like 12.1. It simply says the liability to pay tax shall arise at the time of supply as determined in the provisions of this section. So same thing was given in section 12 also for goods. For service, same thing is given. Now the main part is subsection 2. What it says? The time of supply of service shall be earliest of the following days. What are the earliest? The date of issue of invoice by the supplier, if the invoice is issued within the period prescribed under 31, or the date of payment, whichever is earlier. So first, what date it is saying? Date of invoice, but condition is invoice should have been issued within the prescribed time. Then you will take date of invoice and the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. However, if the invoice is not issued within time, then what are the two dates? The date of provision of service, if the invoice is not issued within the prescribed period, and the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. So this is what is clause A and clause B saying. Now, what is the time prescribed for issuing invoice? The invoice referred to in Rule 46 in case of taxable supply of service shall be issued within a period of 30 days from the date of supply of service. So the time limit given for issuing invoice is 30 days. Provided that where the supplier of service is insurer or banking or financial, including a non-banking financial company, that is NBFC, the period within which the invoice or any document in lieu of thereof is to be issued shall be 45 days from the date of provision of service. So there are two timelines, 30 days in all cases and 45 days for insurance, banking and NBFC. Provided further that an insurance or a banking or a NBFC or a telecom operator or any other class of supplier of service has been notified by the government on recommendation of council, making taxable supply of service between distinct person as specified in 25, may issue the invoice before or at any time such supplier record the same in his books of accounts or before the expiry of the quarter during which supply was made. So in short, Now, what is this point saying? It says that in case of insurance, banking, NBFC, financial institution, and even telecom, for all these suppliers, if there is a supply of service between distinct persons, I hope you remember what are distinct persons. So distinct person means my own other branch which is registered and having a separate GST number. Now this is very common. Like I'll give you example of bank. If let us say your bank is SBI, within your own city you will find multiple SBI branches. Now these branches would have taken separate registration number. Now many times there are transactions between one SBI branch of one area with the SBI branch of another area. It means it is a transaction between two SBI branches only who are registered separately, that is they are distinct person. Now in such cases, what they are saying is time limit. Now what we are reading here, the time limit to issue invoice is quarterly. Here it was time limit to issue invoice is 45 days, correct? So again, for same persons, insurer, banking company, financial institution, and NBFC. Here only telecom is not covered. So normally it is 45 days. So when 45 days, when you are giving invoice to customer, that is when you are providing service to customer and you have to give invoice to the customer. But where the invoice is given by one branch to another, because between the branches they are having multiple supplies. In such cases, the time limit given is quarterly. So up to or within a quarter also you can raise one invoice and that will be acceptable. This is what this point means. I hope this is clear. Anyways, this does not affect our time of supply provision, because time of supply provision is anyways, if invoice is issued within time, you will take the date of invoice, compare it with payment, whichever is earlier. If invoice is issued after the time limit, then you will take the date of provision of service, date of payment, whichever is earlier. Correct, students? So this is what is the first provision, right? Now here, two important explanations. First is what is the meaning of date of receipt of payment? This, if you remember, we had studied even in the RCM case in the previous class. The date of receipt of payment is what? If you all remember, students, date of receipt of payment is earliest of two dates. Date of passing entry in books or date of credit in bank account. So let us say you give me a check. Let us say today is Friday, for example, and you give it to me in the evening right now when the office get closed. And tomorrow day after, let us say we are having a off. Now I will be recording this payment in my books only on Monday. If let us say Monday is also holiday, I'll record it on Tuesday. So Tuesday is the date of passing the entry in my books. So even though you paid or you gave me the check on Friday evening, but for the purpose of time limit or the date when we will say that the payment is received, the answer is the date on which I have passed the entry in the books. In case you have made payment online, then whenever I pass the entry, but my bank will show the credit immediately, so it will be the date of credit. That is why they have said earliest of these two dates is your date of receipt of payment. The same rule we studied when we were studying time of supply for RCM of goods, because over there in case of RCM of goods, payment was an important criterion. This is the first explanation. Now there is one more thing which is very important. I am reading this, though this will make not much a difference. Suppose a part of the consideration is paid in advance or invoice is issued for part part payment. The time of supply will not cover the full supply. This is what we exactly did in our previous example. So where 50% advance was received, we did not take the whole supply value. We broke the supply into two parts so that we could cover two different possibilities for first 50% and for next 50%. So this is exactly what is given. So where there is payment of advance, then you will not cover the full supply in one. You will have to find out time of supply by splitting up. So what it says, the supply shall be deemed to have been made only to the extent it is covered by the invoice or part payment. And that is why we took the 50% as one supply and balance 50% as another supply. So we have already done this practically. I'm just showing the relevant provision where it is written. So why we have to do it in two parts? Because this is how the provision is drafted. So whenever there is advance, you have to keep in mind, you will do the working separately. Correct? But this will apply only in case of service, because in case of transaction for goods, date of payment is irrelevant. Right? Then there is one more interesting point. Now, what is this interesting point? This interesting point is, now because of this rule that you have to see payment and whichever is earlier becomes a time of supply. So there is a possibility that the payment can be a time of supply, as happened in our previous question. Now, what is the point? I will call it as exception. What is that exception? If now in our this example, 9th Feb was the date of receipt of advance and we took 9th Feb as the time of supply. But now this rule has an exception. What is the exception? If your advance is of a small amount, what is the small amount? The advance is up to rupees 1000. Then time of supply will be computed for whole invoice value, ignoring the advance. So what is this? So whenever you have received advance, and we have seen here, if advance is received, there is a possibility that the date of advance received will be the time of supply, right? But this rule has an exception. What is the exception? If your advance received is up to rupees 1000, as in this case, I have written advance is up to rupees 1000, then this will not be treated as time of supply. Rather, now you'll not split the working into two parts. Now you'll find out time for the whole invoice value and you will ignore the advance. It means you will not calculate time of supply for advance separately. This is why, because the advance is of very small amount. It is not exceeding 1000. So somebody pays 500 as advance, somebody paid 600 as advance, 1000 rupees as advance, 900 rupees in advance. So the law does not want you to unnecessarily increase your working into two parts, three parts. So they are saying ignore the advances which are up to 1000. In that case, you will make only one computation for the whole invoice value. This is what it means. I'll show you the literal provision. Reading wise, the language may feel slightly difficult, but now you'll understand. Yes. Now see, we saw these two dates. What was the first? If invoice is issued within time limit, then you check date of invoice and date of payment. And where invoice is not issued within time limit, you check date of service and date of payment, right? But the exception is here. Provided that. Now, whenever the word is provided that, We call that paragraph as proviso, and proviso generally gives you an exception. Provided that where the supplier of taxable service receives an amount up to rupees 1,000 in excess of the amount indicated in invoice. Now, this language means advance. See, this is how you should be able to interpret the law. The law is not using the word advance. The law is saying that you have received an amount of 2,000 which is in excess of amount indicated in invoice. In short, where invoice is not given, still payment is received. When this will happen? This will happen in case of advance. So indirectly, what they are referring to is advance. So what they are trying to say that where the advance is received and it is up to rupees 1,000, the time of supply to the extent of such excess amount. Again, excess amount means what? Advance. So this sentence and excess amount both means advance. So the time of supply to to the extent of such advance shall at the option of the said supplier be the date of invoice relating to such excess amount. In short, you will ignore the advance. You will not compute time of supply separately where the advance is up to rupees 1,000. This is what is the provision. So this is the exception to the general rule. The general rule is you have to take date of receipt of payment, compare it with date of invoice, whichever is earlier. But where the payment received is earlier, that is, it is advance, but it is not exceeding 1,000, then you will not check this particular date. Is this clear, students? Is this understood by all? Anybody, any questions?
Sir, I have one doubt.
Please tell me.
Sir, the meaning of amount of advance, it is part payment, sir. Or advance means if the amount is 50, total is 50,000, we will pay 25,000 as advance. So this is covered under the total amount only, sir. Why it is
Correct.
an extra amount?
See, when you will say anything is advance, where before the provision of service or before the raising of invoice, you give the payment, it is advance.
Yes, but that amount also comes under the whole amount, correct?
Correct, beta.
Or
But
not?
we just saw now, whenever you are receiving advance, we make working in two parts. For advance, we make a separate working, and for balance, we make a separate working. And you get two time of supply. For the first 2.5 lakhs, which was received advance, your time of supply is the earlier date.
Yes, sir. But in the book, it is mentioned in excess of the amount indicated in the
So,
tax
beta, that's what
invoice.
I'm saying. What does this language means? It means, let us say, see, understand this. Today, I have not made any supply. I am saying you first give me this 2.5 lakhs payment, then I will start my service. So will
Yes,
this 2.5 lakhs not be in excess of invoice? Because today I'm not giving invoice. Now, when I will give invoice, I will give invoice only after the service is provided.
payment. Yes. Okay, sir.
You understood, na?
Yes, sir.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
No doubts?
Uh, Still, I have doubt, but in excess of the amount indicated in the tax invoice, the time of supply to the extent of such excess amount shall, at the option of the said supplier, be the date of issue of invoice.
This is what
So,
I have
in
written
this
in
case,
simple words. This is what that entire paragraph means. Yes, tell me.
okay, okay, sir. So, in this 5 lakhs, 2.5 lakhs is advance and the other 2.5 is 5 lakhs is balance.
Hmm.
Uh, in excess, that word only I'm not understood in the study materials. Excess means if the invoice amount is 5 lakhs, but excess means uh, 5 lakhs to 75,000 or I don't understand that, sir. That's only.
Beta, excess means advance, na beta. What is why you are getting confused? Be simple, na. Excess means advance. What is the difficulty? I'm not getting that.
No, so excess means above the invoice amount.
So, beta, if you have not given any invoice, will the advance not become excess above the invoice amount? Tell me. If you
Sorry,
have
sir.
not given invoice,
Okay.
I hope my example is clear. You have not given the
Yes, sir.
invoice, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, if
Yes.
invoice is not given, then any payment made without giving invoice, will it not be in excess of invoice?
Yes, sir.
See, if invoice is not given means invoice is zero.
Yes, sir.
So any payment
But when we prepare,
made is in excess of invoice. Sorry.
yes, sir. If when we prepare the invoice amount is only 2.5 lakhs or 5 lakhs.
But the invoice will be of 5 lakhs only, na, because you have given one service. Why you will make
Yeah.
invoice of 2.5 lakhs? Your service is only
Okay.
one service or two service.
Okay. Before preparing invoice, it will be advance and it is the excess amount. After preparing
Perfect.
invoice, it will be comes under invoice amount only.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, sir. Understood. Understood, sir. Clearly understood.
Yes, Aditi beta.
So like if we are not considering advances and we will ignore the advances in whole. So when we are preparing these statement, so there we will only show only 5 lakh. Now we will just not show 2.5 lakhs and 2.5 lakhs separately.
Sorry, I did not get you, beta.
Like we are completely ignoring advances now. So we will just
No, beta, we are not
consider this
completely.
whole.
It is wrong. Why are we completely ignoring advance? Where is it written that you have to completely ignore advance?
No, but if the advance payment is up to 1,000 rupees, so we will ignore na.
So if it is up to 1,000, na, see how much is advance here.
It's 2.5 lakhs.
So it is above 1,000.
No, like not talking about this example, but
No,
in
no. First
another
answer
case.
me, beta. First answer me. Is it above 1,000?
Yeah.
Then you will not see this exception. Simple.
Yes.
Now let us say here they would have written they have taken 2,000, sorry, 250 as advance only. Let us say here the advance would have been only a token amount 250 rupees. Correct?
Yes.
Then this exception would have become applicable and we would not have made this working. Directly our entire working would be here on for 100%. We will ignore that 250 rupees advance and we'll make only one working for time of supply. Is this clear?
Okay. Okay, sir.
Correct, na? See, so
Yes.
first you have to see if the advance is below 1,000, you have to then not do two workings. You have to do only one working. Then here I will say 100%, like how I did here. See, here we did not split into two. We made one working for the whole amount, right?
Yes, sir.
So where there is no advance, you do only one working for the whole amount. Similarly, where the advance is up to 1,000, you have to do one working for the whole amount.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes, understood.
Perfect. Any other questions, students? Should I proceed? Yes, Harshal.
Sir, if my advance amount is 2,500, then it is not an exception, right, sir? For the
Correct.
payment
Then
of.
you will make two workings.
Okay, sir. Understood, sir.
Only when advance is up to 1,000, you will make one working. That is what is the point.
Then it will be applied, no exception up to the 1,000 limit
But if it is
for
up
the
to
advance.
1,000, then exception applies. You will make only one working. Correct.
Okay,
If
sir.
it
You
is more
taken
than
the example
1,000,
of
then
this.
two workings. Sorry.
Sir, you taken the example of this above question, which is we made a working for the advance and the balance. In that you taken the advance example for this exception. In that you taken 250 rupees amount, right, sir? And
So
then
I changed
in
this
that
example
case,
and made it 250 just for explaining you the meaning of this 1,000 exception.
Yes, sir. In this question, you explain this, but I have question as what is the in this case if we, this is the advance amount is 250 rupees, then it is toss is a 25th March, right, sir? Which was a
Correct.
invoice issued with.
It will be
Okay,
not
sir.
on 25th March, beta. Then this second column will be applicable. This first column will not be applicable.
Okay, sir. Okay, understood, sir.
And then in second
Thank you,
column,
sir.
what is the answer? It is 15 March.
15 March, right, sir. Clear, sir. Clear.
Right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Understood? Clear?
Yes, sir. Understood. Clear, sir.
Okay. Now let us go to remaining two cases of time of supply. Now, what are the other two cases of time of supply? Either continuous supply of service or cessation of service. TOS is earliest of. Now, for both these, TOS is earliest of date of invoice, correct? One second. Having less space, I'll have to write it in a different manner. Okay, one second. Let me first go to the provision to first make you understand everything. See, C part I have left, that I'll come at the end. This explanation I've already done. This is relating to what is the meaning of payment. So this is done, right? Now let me first give you the provision. So we have done up to this point. Now we come to continuous supply of service. The invoice should be issued up to what? So there are 3 dates for issuing of invoice. Now what are the 3 dates for issuing of invoice? First, on or before due date of payment, on or before the date of receiving payment, or on or before the date of completion of milestone event. Now there are 3 dates given. All these 3 dates are date by which invoice should have been issued. So see, now where the invoice was issued within the time limit. Now time limit for regular is 30 or 45 days. Now what is the time limit for issue of invoice? Now in case of continuous supply of service, there are 3 time limits. Now what are these 3 time limits? Before that, you should know when these 3 time limits are applicable. If due date of payment is given in contract, due date of payment, no due date, then actual date of payment. And third, payment linked to completion, then date of completion of event. Now this is slightly tricky or technical. Let me explain you what we are trying to understand. See, what is the rule? You have to check whether your invoice was issued within the time limit. Now time limit is 40 or 45 days, but that is for regular. Now what is the time limit for continuous supply of service? The time limit for continuous supply of service is 3, but these 3 time limit depends upon how your contract is made. Now what you have to see in your contract? In your contract, you have to see whether your contract has fixed some due date of payment. First possibility, your contract has fixed some due date of payment. Second possibility, your contract has not fixed any due date of payment. Am I audible, students?
Yes, sir.
Students, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Because my screen is freezed, I suppose. I'm not able to.
Yes, sir, audible.
Sorry?
Audible.
Screen is stuck, sir.
Audible, sir.
One second. There is some internet issue, I suppose, because my screen is stuck. It is saying Zoom meeting is not responding. Technical team, please allow me facility to share video. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So I was explaining the students. Now, as per the rule, we have to check if the invoice was issued within time limit. Now, what is the time limit for continuous supply of service? So the law has given three different timelines. One is due date of payment, one is actual date of payment, and one where payment is linked to completion. Now we'll take example of all of these to understand. So first case, when does it apply? It says when due date of payment is given in contract. See, I'll give you a simple example of school. Those schools are exempt from GST, but I'm trying to give you that example which you have seen in your day-to-day life. If you go to a school or a college or even a coaching class, there is a due date given that every month you have to deposit the fees by 5th. Or let us say they will say every quarter you have to deposit the fees by 15th. Now this is what is the due date of payment given in the contract. So first, in case of continuous supply of service, since you are continuously supplying the service, you have to check what is given for payment. Is the due date for payment mentioned in the contract? If the answer is yes, then your time limit for issuing the invoice is the due date of payment. Whether you receive the payment or not, that is a different date. we have to check the time limit for issuing invoice. And what is the time limit? The time limit is due date of payment. Second is where there is no due date given in the contract, whatever, no due date given. Like many times in case of private coaching or home to home coaching, there is no fixed date or there is no contract as such. So many times after 2-3 months the payment is done. Sometimes the payment is done in a one month only. Sometimes the payment is done after 1.5 months. So many times when you go to some private training or coaching, there is a possibility that there is no contract itself, or if there is any contract, there is no fixed due date given. In that case, the time limit for raising invoice is the date of payment. And third is where the payment is linked to completion. Now, this third scenario, students, happen mainly in case of construction contracts. So in construction, where you have appointed a builder, a works contractor for constructing a particular structure, how the works contractor will be charging you. Now, again, it is a continuous supply of service. Why? Because every day he is doing some part of construction activity for you. This may take 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever. Every day or continuously, he is providing some service to you by doing some construction for you. In such cases, many times, mainly in construction contracts, you will find this term given in the contract. What is the term? That when I will complete this particular level of work, you will pay me 10%. Let us say that you have asked the person to build a 10th floor building. So what he will say, when I complete the first floor, you give me 10%. Again, when I complete the second floor, you give me 10%. Again, when I complete the third floor, you give me 10%. So no due date is given, no fixed date is given in the contract, but the payment is linked to the completion of the work. In such cases, your due date or time limit to issue invoice is the date on which that work is complete. So when first floor is completed, you should give invoice of 10%. When second floor is completed, you should again give invoice of 10%. When third floor is completed, you should give again invoice of 10%. So this is what is the provision for continuous supply of service. This is the time limit for issuing invoice as given in section 31 for continuous supply of service. Is this clear, students? Have you all understood what is the due date or the time limit given for completion of work, and what is the time limit for time of supply or continuous supply of services? Yes. Done, students? Clear to all? Now there is a definition of continuous supply of service. How it is defined? See, continuous supply of services are agreed to be provided continuously, recurring basis as per a contract, and it should be for a period of exceeding 3 months. Now, this is the only part in the definition which is different from continuous supply of goods. So we also have the definition of continuous supply of goods. In both the definition, the only difference is this part. Under a contract for a period exceeding 3 months with periodic payment obligation and includes supply of such service as the government may notify. Correct? Is this understood? Good. Good. Okay. So students, this is what is the scenario in case of continuous supply of service. Now coming to our cessation. Now what is cessation? Cessation is, as I explained earlier, when you stop the work in between. Now in this case, what will happen? Since you have stopped the work in between, what is the time limit for issue of invoice? And then again, time of supply will be what? You have to check whether the invoice is issued within time limit. Yes. Date of invoice, date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. If not, date of provision of service, or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Now, what is the time limit for issue of invoice? It is the date of cessation. So as I was giving example, you appointed me for carrying out annual audit. I have started the audit. I'm doing the audit on regular basis, right? Now, in this particular case, when after 3 months I come and tell you, sorry, I'm not going to do your work because there is some difference of understanding or there is some problem because of which I do not want to take up the work. In this particular case, now comes the main point. So I stop my service or I cancel my service today after 3 months. Now, if I cancel my service today, the date of cessation is today. Now, interestingly, the law says I should issue invoice today. What is very interesting is up to a proportionate value. Now, since I have not completed the work, I've only done some part of the work. Hence, the invoice will also be raised only for the part of the work which is done. Because whole work is not done, obviously invoice cannot be raised for the whole work. So invoice will be raised for part of the work. So that is what is this point of time limit for issue of invoice in case of cessation of service. See, in case of cessation of supply of service before completion, the invoice should be issued at the time when the supply ceases. So what is the time limit for issuing invoice? The date of cessation. And again, up to what value? Only to the extent of supply made. So the value also should not be the full invoice. And that is logical. If I have not completed the full work, how I can logically ask for the whole payment? So what I will be asking for is proportionate payment. So this is what is the time of supply provisions in case of forward charge transactions given in section 12 subsection 2. Still, I have to explain you C part, but what we were discussing is A and B. A and B provided two scenarios: issued in time, invoice not issued in time. And for both these scenarios, we had three different types of services. One is regular, one is continuous, and one is cessation. Right, students? Is this understood and clear? With this, we complete the time of supply for forward charge transactions. Now in this, there is clause C. What does clause C says? What will be the time of supply? It will be the date on which the recipient shows the receipt of service in his books, in case where the provision of clause A and B do not apply. So this is like a residuary provision. What is this residuary provision? So where your above rule fails, in case above provisions fail, in that case, TOS is date of entry in books of recipient of service. So what it means, students? See, we are going by the presumption that the supplier is maintaining proper books of accounts. Now let us say the supplier is a small supplier, not having any proper accounting, not having proper maintenance of books. In such cases, if the supplier has failed to maintain proper books of accounts, then in that particular case, how do you determine the time of supply? So to help us, this residuary rule has come, which says that if the supplier has not maintained proper books, obviously the above dates which you want, date of invoice, date of providing service, nothing would be recorded. In that particular case, what will be the mechanism of determining time of supply? So if at supplier end the details are not available, try to check whether details are available at the recipient end. Now, if recipient is a big company, and let us say I'm an individual supplier, let us say I'm doing some fabrication work, some cleaning work, such type of small supplier I am, where I go to everybody's place, I do the work, I get my payment, etc. Now, I am not having any proper books. I may be uneducated. I may not be doing any such things. I may not be passing proper entry. But you are a company, you are a big corporate, and you have asked me to provide the services at your site. I'd come to your site, done my service, and I took my payment. Now, in this particular case, where I am not maintaining proper details, hence the above dates which you want for determining time of supply are not available, and hence the above provision fails, then the time of supply will be determined taking the date of entry in the books of the recipient. I hope this is clear to you all. So this is what is the residuary provision. Students, anybody? Any questions? Students, no doubts?
Sir?
Yes, beta.
Sir, it's just for my understanding. Can I give you an example and you can tell me
Yeah,
that is it
please, that
correct
would
or
be
not?
best.
Yeah, like as you told that you are an auditor for a company of mine, okay? So you are a supplier of service. You're providing me a service of audit, and I'm the recipient of service over here. I'm
Perfect.
receiving the service. So if by any chance you have not prepared these
Details.
details,
Books of
yeah,
accounts,
details.
invoice. I don't have any such details.
Yeah, so I can't, so we can't determine that what's the date, what's the time of supply. So for that, we will look at in our books, like in our company books, and as the recipient, and we will see the date of the entry in our books, and then we will determine that what's the time of supply.
Perfect. So see, understand this. Since you are a company, you are doing entry for everything because for you maintaining books is compulsory as per Companies Act. Plus you have to regularly report it on MCA portal. So you are doing all things in a proper manner. Now in this
Yeah.
particular case, see this residuary rule is made just to ensure that nothing is missed out. So if I fail to maintain details, it can be done at your end, right?
So from my books of account, we can determine the time of supply.
Yes.
Okay, so
Let us proceed, students. Now, once we have completed the time of supply for forward charge transaction, now let us move on to time of supply for reverse charge transaction. Now, for this, let us just go back to what we studied in case of goods. So, if you remember, when we were studying time of supply for goods, we had studied that time of supply for reverse charge of transaction of goods is earliest of 3 dates: date of receipt, date of making payment, or 31st day from the date of invoice or document of the supplier. So out of these dates, we had to take whichever is earlier, right? Now something similar is present over here. The only difference is here the date of receipt of service is not given for obvious reason, because service is something which cannot be seen, which cannot be means you cannot actually identify when exactly the service is received. So since the date of receipt of service is not available, not possible, hence they have not given this as the date. In that particular case, the time of supply is similar to what you studied above, with the only difference that here the date of receipt of service is not given. Then what are the dates? First, it is the date of payment made as entered in the books of accounts. or as debited in the bank. Then here the date immediately following 60 days. Now in goods, it was immediately following 30 days. So we had written 31st day from the date of invoice. Here it is 60 days. So we'll write 61st date from the date of invoice, right? And then the date of issue of invoice by the recipient in case where the invoice is to be issued by the recipient. This point I will explain separately. So what is the time of supply? So 13.3. Time of supply for reverse charge transactions. Now, TOS is earliest of. First, date of making payment. Now again, what is the date of making payment? It is either date of entry in books or date of debit in bank. First date, correct? Second date is 61st day from date of invoice. Now, date of invoice or document to be issued by supplier. So we have to take earliest of these dates. One is when you are making payment for this reverse charge transaction. Now remember one thing, in case of reverse charge, you are the recipient of service. So you have to make payment for the service. That date or the 61st day from the date of the invoice or document which is issued by the supplier. Out of this, whichever is earlier, correct? So let us take example. Messrs. ABCL or ABC Limited received security services from Mr. Gopal, who is an individual, valued rupees 2 lakhs. Right? Now, if you all remember, where in case of security services, the recipient is a registered person, a body corporate, and the supplier is a person other than body corporate, then the transaction falls under reverse charge. Now, in this particular case, you have received security services. Now, the service is for January 26. Document, or I will say invoice instead of document. Invoice raised by Mr. Gopal is 5th Feb 26. Date of payment. Now again, I split the payment in two parts, right? So in two parts, if I have to split the payment, let us say date of payment is 10th Feb. Now out of rupees 2 lakhs, 50,000 is paid here and balance on 15th April. Now this security services are under RCM as per our RCM notification. So we have to see the dates. Now again, there are two payments. So first payment rupees 50,000. Second payment rupees 1.5 lakhs. Now what are the dates I have to see? Date of payment and 61st day from date of invoice. Now students, it is same like counting the 31st day which we did here. If you remember, see, I follow this method. This I follow everywhere so that it is easy. Draw a timeline like this so it becomes easy to understand. So if you remember, for reverse charge of goods, I've drawn timeline like this. See. So it is easy once you draw a timeline like this. Correct? So over here, the rule was 31st day from the date of invoice. So I made a timeline like this just for simplicity. So 5th is the date of invoice. From that, you are counting how many days? 30 days, so that you can take the 31st day, right? Similarly, we follow the same approach here. So what is my date? Date of invoice is 5th Feb again. So it is 5th Feb. So up to end of Feb, how many days are there? 23 days. Then from here, March starts. So this is 1st March. Then March has 31 days. So this is 31 days. So how many days have become? 23 plus 31 is 54. Now I further need how many days to complete 60? I need 6 days. So it will complete on 6th April, right? I want the 61st day. So here my date will be 7th April. So 60 days are completing on 6th April. I have to take the date immediately following that date. So I will take 7th April. The first payment date is 10th Feb and the second payment date is 15th April. So what is the time of supply for this? Whichever is earlier. For first 50,000, this is the time of supply. For balance 1.5 lakhs, this is the time of supply. Correct, students? Is this clear? Anybody, any questions? So what is the provision? In case of reverse charge, transaction of services, you have to take the date of payment or 61st day from the date of invoice or document to be issued by supplier. Now here there is one more point, I'll come to that because that point will be applicable when this point is not applicable. I'll explain that. But I hope this is understood. Now comes the second part. What is the second part? It is date of issue of invoice by the recipient in cases where the invoice is to be issued by the recipient. Right? Now see, what is the difference? When the invoice is to be issued by the supplier, this is where the supplier is registered. When the invoice is to be issued by the recipient, where the supply is unregistered. Correct? So when the supplier is unregistered, the invoice is to be issued by the recipient. And when the supplier is registered, the invoice is to be issued by the supplier. So this is the difference. Now, obviously, I'm sure you'll understand B and C will become OR. Because if supplier is registered, supplier has to issue invoice, then B will apply. If supplier is unregistered, anyways, the supplier cannot issue invoice. It will be then case which will be C case. Correct? So let me take this example as well. So here, students, I'm writing OR for you. Though it is not written in the law, but logically, both these will not apply together. So either it will be this, so it is or is between these two. Date of, one more thing. Now, who is raising this invoice? It is the recipient raising invoice. On whom? On himself. So we call it as self-invoice because here supplier is unregistered. So the law has put the responsibility on the recipient to raise the invoice on its own self. This you'll study in invoicing chapter, that where the supplier is unregistered. So here, when the supplier is required to issue document where the supplier is registered, but where the supplier is unregistered, since it is unregistered, it cannot issue document. That is, it cannot issue proper invoice. In that case, it is to be done by the recipient. So date of self-invoice, where invoice is to be issued by recipient. When this will happen? When your supplier is unregistered. Now, by default, students, I hope you can understand, out of both these, one of the dates will apply, not both, logically. Because if supplier is registered, then the supplier is required to issue invoice, then second point will not come. If supplier is unregistered, supplier is not required to issue invoice, recipient is required to issue invoice, then the second point of 61st day will not come. So this is a logical point, though not given in the law like this. So let me take example of this also. Messrs. Copacabana is LLP, avails legal service from advocate AVP Associates, rupees 5 lakhs. Since advocates are exempted from taking registration, AVP Associate is unregistered supplier. Now, service taken on 12th Jan, or wait, 12 March 26. Payment rupees 2 lakhs advance on 25th Feb and rupees 3 lakhs on 15th April. Messrs. Copacabana raises self-invoice on 25th March 26. Now again, we have two payments. One it is advance, rupees 2 lakhs. Balance, rupees 3 lakhs. Now what are the dates? One is date of payment and the other is date of self-invoice. Now see, I am not taking 61st day because logically it is not applicable. Chalo, even if you say we will take 61st day anyways, it will always be after this date, logically. So by default, your self-invoice date will always be earlier. But logically, it should not be taken, so I'm not taking it. Though at times some notes may take it, but logically, as I've explained, out of both, only one will apply at a time. So I took one example where supplier raise invoice. In second, supplier is unregistered, so I have to raise self-invoice. So both types of examples have got covered here. Now, what are the dates? The date of payment is 25th Feb and the balance payment is 15th April. Self-invoice date is 25th March. 25th March. Now, whichever is earlier, the time of supply will be first is this date, and for balance it is 25th of March. So this is how, students, you find time of supply in case of reverse charge transaction of services. Is this clear, students? Yes, students, is this clear? Anybody, any queries, doubts? Great. Super. So let us take our break, students, 15 minutes, because it has been too technical today. So we take a break now, right? And we continue after the break. Let us resume. So we just studied the time of supply in case of reverse charge. Now again, for this clause C. Now what is clause C? As you can see, it is newly added. And when this was newly added, there was a correction made in clause B also. So now what is the correction? When 61 days rule is applicable, where the document is required to be issued by supplier, when this will happen, where the supplier is registered, and where the document or the invoice is to be issued by the recipient, which is called as self invoice, when this will happen, where the supplier is unregistered. Now there is a proviso to clause C. Provided there where it is not possible to determine the time of supply in A, B, or C, the time of supply shall be the date of entry of books in the recipient of supply. So again, this becomes the exception or proviso. So, or this here, I should say it is more of, instead of exception, I should say it is more of the residuary rule. Correct? Where above provisions not possible. POS is date of entry in books of. So where let us say above details are not maintained, proper invoice is not maintained, or payment details are not maintained. Now this will happen wherever the business is done on cash basis. So in such case, they say that it will be the date of entry in the books of recipient. Now if you remember, similar thing we had studied in case of reverse charge of goods. And if you remember at that time I had mentioned that I believe this is a typo error in the law. This should be entry in the books of supplier. Why? Because anyways for RCM, as a recipient, we are the one who are going to pay the tax. And if above these provisions which are required, that is date of payment, date of issue of invoice, etc., if this is not maintained by us, then how will I pay the tax? So I believe here it should be date of entry in the books of supplier. However, this is how the law is drafted. I believe someday this may get corrected to supplier, but as on date, it is the date of recipient, entry in the books of the recipient. Now, this is a special case, may not be very useful to you all at this level, but what this says, provided further that in case supply is by associated enterprise, where the supplier of service is located outside India, the time of supply shall be the date of entry in the books of accounts of the recipient or the date of payment, whichever is earlier. So again, you can say this is exception or special case. Now, what is exception? Supply between associated enterprises. Now see, you remember there is something called as distinct person. Now here they have not used the word distinct person. Why? Because the supplier is outside. Now where the supplier is outside India, obviously outside India there is no GST law of India. They may have their GST law, but that is of the respective country. Now since the GST law of India does not apply outside India, so the supplier sitting outside will not have taken any registration under Indian GST. And since the supplier has not taken any registration under the Indian GST, hence the supplier technically is not the distinct person. See, when you call anybody your distinct person, when that person and you both have taken GST number and you both are having the same PAN number, only different GST numbers. Now here, your associated enterprise means what? Let us say your branch is sitting outside India, but the branch cannot be called as distinct person because the branch has not taken, or I'll say the branch cannot take a separate registration outside, because outside India, GST law of India does not apply. So that is why instead of distinct person, they have used the word associated enterprise. Supplier is outside. TOS is. So what is the TOS given here? It is the date of entry in the books of recipient or the date of payment, whichever is earlier. So one is date of entry in the books of the recipient or the date of payment, whichever is earlier. So these are two special provisions in time of supply for reverse charge of services. Yes, students, is this clear to all? Anybody having any doubts? Please let me know. Students, anybody, any doubts? No? So should I proceed? Now, I have striked out subsection 4. Why? If you remember, similar subsection also existed in time of supply of goods where vouchers are issued. Now, this particular provision has been removed from the law. So that is why I have deleted it, because now it will not be applicable for your exam. It may be printed here, but it is no more applicable to your exams. Now we come to subsection 5. Now what is subsection 5? Where it is not possible to determine time of supply of service under subsection 2, 3, 4, that is under any of the above provision, then the time of supply will be, in case where periodical return is to be filed, it is the date of such return, and in any other case, it is the date of payment. Again, similar provision was there even in case of goods. Same provision is here. So now Now here, it is generally, if you remember the previous case when we were discussing time of supply of goods, I had mentioned that this particular provision is drafted for tax evaders. So for tax evaders who are trying to evade tax, whenever they are caught, how will the time of supply be decided? Because when we have to recover tax from them, we should also decide the time of supply. So what does it say? If periodical returns are to be filed, due date of filing the return. Second, in any other case. Now this will happen in case where you have to pay tax under RCM. So you are paying tax as a recipient. Now for that, return filing is not compulsory. So where return filing is not compulsory, that is in case of RCM payments, it is the date So this is what is the residuary provision. Now coming to 13.6. This is time of supply for penalty or late fees or interest for late payment of consideration. Now, what is this? Again, similar provision existed in goods, so it is a replica of that. So let us say I provided you my service. CA Vishal Poddar provided service consultancy service and raised invoice of rupees 12 lakhs on 15th December 25 with 15 days credit. So you were supposed to make payment to me by 30th December. Payment was made delayed on 15th March 26. Hence, I charge interest rupees 25,000. This interest was paid along with consideration. So, on 15 March, you paid the consideration plus this 25,000 interest. Now, in this case, what is the time of supply provision saying? Time of supply is March 26. So which means what is the provision? The provision is time of supply is date of receipt of this penalty, late fees or interest, whatever you say. So whatever is the extra amount that you are charging to your recipient for being late, that amount is covered in 13.6. Now you have to link it with section 15, which is the valuation chapter, which you'll study after this, where the valuation chapter says that this extra payment, which is recovered from the recipient on account of or because of reason of the recipient getting late in making the payment, this extra payment will be recovered as a part of consideration of original supply, or in other words, this extra payment, whether you call it as penalty, late fees or interest, it will not be considered as an independent supply. It will be considered as part of original supply. This you'll study in the valuation chapter. Here for the time being, what is the provision of time of supply? So time of supply for what? It relates to addition in the value. How? By way of interest, late fee, penalty. And why? Because of delayed payment. It shall be the date on which the supplier receives the amount. So what is the time of supply? Time of supply is the actual date of payment of this amount. So in my example, it is 15 March. So 15 March will be time of supply of this transaction. Is this clear, students? Any doubt, students? Any doubt, students? No doubts? Perfect. So these are the provision, students, for time of supply of services. So here our module has beautifully given these provisions in the form of a chart. which you can refer definitely. See, all the provisions are given. Now this, that 1000 rupees point, excess payment up to 1000. So what it says, option of taking invoice date as the time of supply. In short, in simple words, you can ignore the advance if it is up to 1000. Then under reverse charge, there are two dates. One is date of payment and then 61st day, or date of payment and the date of issue of invoice by the recipient. Now here, let us read this particular part. The time limit for issuance of invoice by recipient for supply of service in case of RCM. Now this is by way of 31(3)(f), which is the provisions relating to raising of invoice, read with Rule 47A. Now all this is part of invoice, but since it is related to our topic, we are just reading. So wherein invoice referred to in Rule 46 is required to be issued under section 31(3)(f). What is 31(3)(f)? Where the supplier is unregistered and the tax is to be paid by the recipient under RCM. This is what is 31(3)(f). So by the recipient, who is a registered person, who is liable to pay tax under 9394, that is RCM, he shall issue invoice within a period of 30 days from the date of receipt of said goods or service as the case may be. So the law has put 30 days time limit on the recipient of service to raise a self invoice. Thus, invoice is to be issued within 30 days from the date of receipt of said supply of goods or service as the case may be. And then this exceptional point which we just studied, import of service between associated enterprise. I just explained that associated enterprise means your branch outside India. So this is what is the time of supply provisions in relation to reverse charge transaction. Correct? Okay. Voucher, this I have striked out because it is written. It may be noted that Finance Act 25 has proposed to omit the provisions relating to time of supply of vouchers. Provisions of Finance Act have not yet been effective as on the date of printing of this material. Once this amendment comes into effect, the students will no longer be required to study the provisions relating to time of supply of vouchers. Now this has already come into effect, so I've already struck this down, so it will not be applicable to your exams. Right? No, Maithili, but I'm sorry, I cannot understand Tamil. I will try to learn. Let's see how early this is possible. Then this is the residuary part, which we studied. Where return is required to be filed, it is the due date of return, and where return is not required to be filed, it is the date on which the tax is paid. And last is in case of interest, penalty, etc. So these are the entire set of provisions of time of supply of services. Right, students? So if you have any queries, doubts, please let me know, because from my side, the provisions are completed in total with examples, with practical case studies. We have discussed all the provisions. Now see here, if we revise, now revision is done comparatively. So on one side, time of supply of goods is given, on one side, time of supply of service is given, right? So this will be a comparative study. So what it says, in case of goods, you have to simply see the earliest of. One is the date of invoice and the other is the due date of invoice. So date of invoice, due date of invoice, correct? And second is date of receipt of payment. As you remember, this is not applicable in case of goods because of the notification. That is what is written here also. So no GSTs at the time of receipt of advance. Why? Because of the notification issued in November 2015. Now this date of payment is not relevant. So if you have received advance in case of goods, forward charge transaction, no GST is payable on that advance. However, when you look at services, what is the rule? If invoice is issued within the time prescribed, then it is the, now first is invoice should be issued within time. If it is issued within time, then it will be earliest of date of issue of invoice, date of receipt of payment. And where the invoice is not issued within time, then it will be date of providing service and date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. So in case of service, students, the advance will also be leviable to tax, that is in case of supply of service, the date of advance is relevant because that will become time of supply, but this will not happen in case of goods. Yes, Harshal.
Sir, I have a question in the provided that in subsection of 13.
Sorry, beta.
I have a question, sir, in section 13, subsection 3. In
Tell
that
me.
provided that further, in that case, sir, associate enterprises. Actually, in that I have a question. If it is located in India, then what is the means what is the
If
time of
if
supply?
if the associated enterprise is located in India, you will not fall in this particular rule. You will fall in the general rule. This exception is applicable only where the associated enterprise is outside India. If you are in
Sir,
India, then this
still
rule is not required. Then you will fall in the general rule.
ओके सर स्टिल आई हैव क्वेश्चन कि अगर इंडिया में होंगी एसोसिएट एंटरप्राइज की ब्रांच तो फिर जो एसोसिएट ब्रांच है एक्चुअली वो आप डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन कंसिडर करेंगे ना एज पर द
Correct.
एक्ट ऑफ जीएसटी
Correct. And then regular provisions will apply.
ओके सर ओके अंडरस्टूड सर
Correct.
थैंक यू सर अंडरस्टूड
Okay. Yes, Dhanalakshmi, beta.
Sir, here in the 13.3, sir, 61st days then, so 61st day from the date of invoice, that is issued by the supplier.
Correct,
Hello,
beta.
am I
Yes,
audible?
61st day from the date of invoice where the supplier is required to issue invoice.
Yes, supplier is a registered supplier, sir.
Obviously, because only then when see this is what is not written in the law, but this is the point that you have to understand that where the supplier is registered, only in that case the supplier is required to issue invoice. How can unregistered supplier issue invoice? Correct.
Yes, sir. But
So that is why by
under,
default it becomes the supplier is registered.
okay, sir. But under RCM, like if the supplier is not registered, only no, sir, RCM will come.
Huh?
If the supplier is not registered, then only RCM concept will come, no, sir.
No, but that is not the case, na. We are not talking about 9.4 RCM only. We are talking about 9.3 RCM also. And in 9.3, supplier may be registered in some cases, supplier may be unregistered in some cases. So
Okay.
it is not that supplier is unregistered only, then RCM is applicable. Go and check 9.3 list again.
Okay, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir. That is.
Understood, beta?
Yes, sir. Understood. Thank you, sir.
Perfect. Chalo. So then let me go back to the revision part. Now, what is the time limit for raising invoice? Okay, Virashri. Okay. Yes, Virashri.
Uh, Sir, I have a small doubt in
Please tell me.
section 13, subsection 2, cessation of service.
Yes, tell me. Tell me.
So, in that case, if they've stopped giving the service, at that time only they will issue the invoice you told. So, in case
Means
if any,
the day when we decide, see, we will take a call that today I decide that I will stop giving you service because of some dispute with you. Or let us say, as I gave example, you appointed me as an auditor, but I found that there is a lot of problem in your entity, so I do not want to take the risk of your audit. So today I send you a letter stating that I want to discontinue my services. So today becomes the date of cessation.
so on
Now
that
tell me.
date, so on that date, the invoice will be given, sir.
So
Issued.
beta, so on that date, I should raise the invoice. This is what the time of supply provision says. Invoice for what? Invoice for that person proportion of service which I have given till date. So till date I would have done something.
Yes, sir. For that work, we are raising the invoice on that date. If any
Yes.
advance amount is received, sir, so in that case, will it be adjusted with this or?
If any advance amount is received, see obviously now what will happen? See, if I have received advance, I have already paid tax on that advance earlier. Because in case of supply of service, it is whichever is earlier, right? So even I have to pay tax on advance.
Okay, sir.
So in this particular case, if I have received advance, then I would have already paid tax on that advance at the time of receipt itself.
Okay, sir.
Correct?
When the time we've received the advance itself we would have paid the
Yes,
tax.
because in case of service, whichever is earlier rule is applicable for payment also, na?
Okay, sir. Okay. Got it.
Understood?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Yes, students. Now, if no further queries, let me proceed with the revision part. So, what are the time limits given for raising invoice? In case of normal transactions of supply of goods, it should be raised on or before the date of removal or delivery of the goods. Whereas in case of service, the time limit for raising invoice in normal cases is 30 days. And in case the supplier is insurance or banking or NBFC, it is 45 days. Now, what is the time of supply under RCM? In case of goods, it is earliest of date of receipt of goods, date of making payment, and 31st day from the date of issue of invoice of supplier. Whereas in case of supply of service, it is the date of payment and then either B or C. Again, I repeat, students, that is not how the law has been crafted, but that is what is the logical interpretation. It is either B or C. It is 61st day from the date of issue of invoice by the supplier in case where invoice is required to be issued by supplier. And this will happen only when the supplier is registered. Or second, date of issue of invoice by the recipient in case where invoice is required to be issued by the recipient. And how much time is given in the law? 30 days. This will happen only where the supplier is unregistered. Correct? Now, where the above events are not ascertainable. So let us say above dates are not ascertainable, then how time of supply will be decided? It is the time shall be the date of entry in the books of accounts of the recipient. And in case of import of service, where again RCM is applicable because it is import, but only from your associated enterprise, this is the rule. That is date of entry in the books of accounts or the date of payment, whichever is earlier. Right? And then this is anyways.
So there is no
Sorry, beta.
sections for time of supply for services for forward charges, sir.
Please repeat. There is no section for what?
Forward charge of time of supply under services.
But this is forward charge only. The first part is for forward charge. See, we studied. In fact,
Okay,
today
sir.
we started with this only. Na? You have to check whether the invoice is issued within the time limit. What is the time limit? 30
Okay,
days, 45 days. That is forward charge only. Na?
okay, sir. Sorry, sir.
First is forward charge, then it is reverse, then it is the remaining provisions. And then time
Okay,
of
sir.
supply of goods or services. Now this is common in both. That is in residual cases where periodical return is required to be filed, due date of filing such return. In other cases, date of payment of tax. Second, where there is addition in value. Why? Because of interest, late fees, penalty. Why? Because you have paid the consideration late. Then the time of supply is the date on which the supplier receives such addition in value. Now, some important points. The provisions relating to time of supply of goods falling in residual category are same as that of time of supply of service falling in residual category. Also, the provisions relating to time of supply of addition in value of interest, late fees, penalty for delayed payment of consideration is same for goods and service. So both these provisions are same for supply of goods and supply of service. Furthermore, concepts like opting of taking a invoice date as time of supply in case of receipt of excess payment. Again, excess payment, please read it as advance. Up to 1,000. Meaning of date of payment, significance of word to the extent the invoice. See, all this we have discussed. So wherever the advance is up to 1,000 rupees, students, the law says in that case, you may ignore this advance and you may treat the entire service taxable on one date. That is the date when you are completing the service and issuing the invoice. Fine, students. Great. So now we can just take few questions for our practice. So determine time of supply in following cases. Assume that GST is payable under RC. Yes, Sushmita.
Sir, in exam, is there any chance that we'll get questions like where we are asked to give the definitions of words? Like in every chapter we have definitions, right? Should we be learning those definitions, or
See,
is it only for understanding?
generally you are not asked any definition as such, except where there is some definition which has come by amendment. Only that definition you need to learn thoroughly. Otherwise, it will not be asked at this level that give definition of this.
Okay.
Correct?
Okay, sir. Yes.
Okay, Samiran has a question. I'll take Samiran's question from the chat. He says, Sir, would voluntarily registered person need to follow all this provision? Answer is yes. See, once you are registered, whether you did this voluntarily or it was compulsory, all the provisions of the law applies to you equally. Once you are registered, then the law will not see why or how you registered. All provisions apply at same level. Lois says, Sir, are there any rules where the supplier does not receive money? Very good question. So in short, what happens if there is bad debts? Now see, this is what is the problem. The problem is if the supplier has not received the payment, means there is bad debts, then the challenge is supplier pays the tax out of his pocket, and unfortunately there is no relief given to the supplier. Very good question, Lohit. So this is where the challenge comes. The challenge is that supplier may not receive payment in few cases, which we call as bad debts. But because of time of supply, the supplier is liable to make payment of tax on the time of supply, which the supplier would have paid, and the supplier has not received the money. So it is a double loss to the supplier. This is unfortunately a bad situation, but unfortunately, there is no relief in this. Right, students? Yes. Yes, Lohit, this is the situation in all previous laws also. So nothing has changed in GST. Even the previous laws did not provide any such relief. So it is not that GST has brought this. It is same in previous laws also. Right, students? Okay. Now, we have to determine time of supply. Now the transaction is reverse charge and it is of goods. Now, what is the rule for reverse charge of goods? You have to take first date is the date of receipt of goods. Then the second date is date of payment. And then you have to take the 31st day. This is the only thing which you have to find out. Then these dates are not important for us. We have to compare these three dates: receipt, payment, and 31st day from this date. Right? Whichever is earlier will be your time of supply. Right, students? I hope you understand this. So you may just find out the 31st day, write it here for each transaction, and then simply take earliest of these three dates. That will be your time of supply. I've already explained how to count the 31st day. Now, another situation is determine time of supply in following cases. Assume GST is payable under RC. Now it is date of payment by recipient for supply of service. So it is supply of service. Now in case of supply of service, first date to be checked is date of payment. And the second date is not this date. We have to check the 61st date from invoice. So you have to find out that date, and then out of both these dates, whichever is earlier is your time of supply. So in case of reverse charge transaction of service, what one thing is not there or which is not to be checked is the date of receipt. So in case of goods, you have one more date. In case of reverse charge, so there are three dates, 1, 2, and 3. But in case of reverse charge transaction of service, there is no receipt of service date to be checked. It is only date of payment or the 61st day from the date of invoice. Correct? Next, Kabira Industries engaged the service of transporter for road transport, so it is GTA, on 17 June, made advance payment on the same date. Consignment could not be sent immediately on account of strike and instead was sent on 20th July. Invoice was received from transporter on 22nd July. What is the time of supply of the transporter service? Now here, first thing that we have to assume in this case is whether it is forward charge or reverse charge. I'm assuming it is reverse charge. No, I don't know what they have assumed. Let me check whether anything is clear from the question. So Kabira Industries engaged services of transporter, made payment transporter. However, the consignment note not sent immediately. See, I think this is the most suitable assumption, because you all know in GTA there are two possibilities, forward and reverse, but forward is applicable only when the GTA selects that option. Now nothing is mentioned here, so we will assume GTA has not selected the option, so we are taking RCM. Now for RCM, what is the rule? Now this is supply of service, so we have to see two dates. One is the date of payment, right? What is the date of payment? So the date of payment is 17 June, right? First date. And the second date is I have to find 61st day from this date. Out of that, whichever is earlier, definitely students, it will be this date only. Correct? Because anyways, the invoice date is 22nd July, which is much later. So 61st day from that date will be much later. So it will be 17th of June only by default. That is the date of receipt of payment. Next, Raju Limited receives the order and advance payment on 5th of January for carrying out architectural design. It delivers the design on 23rd. So this is the date of provision of service. By oversight, no invoice is issued, and it is issued much later after the expiry of the prescribed period. What is the time of supply? Now here it is a regular transaction of supply of service. In this, you have to check what, firstly, whether the invoice is issued within the time limit of 30 days. They have already mentioned invoice is not issued within the time limit of 30 days. Then what are the two dates that you will check? One is the date of payment and one is the date of provision of service, which is 23rd July. 23rd April. Out of this, whichever is earlier. So it will be 5th of Jan. Correct, students? Okay. Fine, students. Good. Now, investigation shows that 150 cartons of ceramic capacitors were dispatched on 2nd August, but no invoice was raised, and the transaction was also not entered in the books. Now here, this case is of tax evasion. Also, there is no evidence of receipt of payment. What is the time of supply of this 150 cartons for the purpose of payment of tax? Now, whenever it is tax evasion, we go to the residuary rule. The residuary rule says that if periodical returns is to be filed, it is the due date of return. Definitely, returns have to be filed. Now, since you have made the supply on 2nd of August, the return for 2nd of August, students, you will study later, is to be filed in the month of September by 20th. So 20th September is the due date of filing returns. This you will study in the return filing chapter. So since it is a case of tax evasion, going by the residuary rule, and since the return filing is applicable, the date will be the due date of filing the returns here. So it will be 20th of September. Now, an order is placed on Ramen Company on 18th August for supply of consignment. Ramen Company gets the consignment ready and informs the customer and issues the invoice on 2nd December. So this is the date of invoice. The customer collects the consignment from the premises of Ram on 7th December and electronic transfers the payment, which is entered in the next day, which is 8th December, right? Now, what are the dates that we have to see in case of supply of goods? It is the date of invoice or the due date of invoice, whichever is earlier. This date of payment is not relevant. So it is the date of invoice, due date of invoice, whichever is earlier. So it will be 2nd of December. Yes, very good students. Perfect. So you are understanding the provisions perfectly. Next, a firm of advocate issues invoices for services to ABC Limited on 17th Feb. Again, you know this is of RCM because advocates are covered under RCM. The payment is contested by ADC on the ground that on account of negligence of the firm, the company's case was dismissed by the court for non-appearance with necessitated further appearance for which the firm is billing the company. The dispute drags on and finally payment is made on 3rd November. Identify the time of supply. Now see, in case of RCM, what is the rule? It is the date of payment, or from this date you have to count 61 days. So it is the 61st day from this date, whichever is earlier. Definitely this date will be earlier because this is very far off date. So whatever will be the 61st day, that will be your answer. Correct, students? 17th Feb, but I will not be the answer. 17th Feb is the date of issue of invoice. We are talking about RCM because advocate service comes under RCM. And in that case, in case of RCM, you don't have to take the date of invoice. You have to take the 61st day from the date of invoice. That will be your answer. Correct, beta? Perfect. So students, you are getting the understanding of the provision thoroughly. So that is great. Kindly practice further questions which are there, and also practice from past exam papers, MTPs, RTPs for better understanding. This is a simple mathematical type of chapter. Mathematics also is very in few 1 or 2 cases. Otherwise, it is simple. You have to, for most important is you have to check which dates are to be checked. Only those dates have to be taken. Other dates have to be ignored. Fine, students. So I think with this, we can close today's session. So thank you, students. Thank you very much. I'll upload both these notes. One is the marked notes, which I have marked, and also the notes which I have written by hand, so that you will get both of them. Yes, Sridhar is asking, sir, case study kaise write kare? Sridhar, I have informed this earlier, but I'll repeat. See, you have to first mention the provision. So let us say we'll take just example of that advocate service. So I'll say that in case of advocate service, it falls under RCM. Hence, the time of supply is to be computed by taking earliest of these 2 dates. One, the date of payment, and 2, 61st day. In front of that, I'll write the dates, right? And then I will write in the present case, out of both these dates, the earlier date is this, hence the time of supply is this. So what is the rule, beta? First, you have to mention the provision which is applicable to that particular case. And then in the second part, you have to explain how that provision is applied in the given case. So like in this particular chapter, you have to mention the date. See how I have been writing. So only thing is, first you'll write the provision in your own words. Second part, you'll write the dates, and then you'll say whichever earlier of this is this date, hence this is the time of supply. See, beta, you have to count the days after the date of invoice. So whatever is the date of invoice, let us say 5th of Feb. So after 5th up to 20th, how many days are there? 23 days. So that is how you count the days. Yes, beta, you have to remember, Tanu, all the provisions because they are important, beta. Yes, I'm happy to know that your concepts are getting cleared. Thank you. Thank you. So that's it all, students. Thank you very much. Good night. Take care. Yes, thank you.